So guys, thank you very much for joining in. So today we are having Mr. Robert, a full stack engineer, as you can see, very experienced with Flutter, and actually guys, we should be ready to learn from him. He's eager actually to have these sessions go on furthermore. That's the reason why we have this titled as Code the Future from Zero to Flutter Hero. Code the future from zero to Flutter Hero. So we expect that the guys who really have the urge of learning more and more and more, I have a Google form. I know I have most of the details of the people who basically registered online. I know I have their details, but I still need the committed guys such that we can have more arranged sessions with Mr. Robert. Not just a one session like only just today, no, not just only today, but basically to have more other sessions because he's having 3 times a week. I think he will tell us more, where he can keep on having more sessions and more tasks and activities. This is not just a 1 day session you get, guys. So this one here, I'm going to personally give out a form, and then you're going to fill it in, possibly towards the middle of the session and towards the end, such that at least we can take track of your names, get them out, and at the end of the session, if at all those who registered through the Google form and really they have been making good follow-up, we can have certificates for them. We can make an arrangement with Mr. Robert and have certificates for those who deserve them. Not just certificate of participation, no, at least a certificate for those who have attained the skill, someone at least who has learned something. So basically, without wasting time, allow me give him the floor because he's the speaker of the day. So, Mr. Robert, please feel
Thank
free.
you. It's very exciting to help you guys out, to be here. As I said, I'm from the same continent originally, but if you find my accent a little hard to understand, just let me know, because I've traveled quite a bit and it's quite a mix of a lot of places by now. So just let me know if I'm being a bit if I'm hard to understand, but I'll try my best. So as Frank mentioned, yes, I'm a full stack Flutter developer. I've been programming for about 15 years, and I've been working in the Flutter space for about 7 years. And in that time, learned a lot. I've pretty much been with Flutter since it was launched. So I've kept up to date with all the updates in time. And I'm also a self-taught engineer, Flutter engineer, but I did study engineering at university. But I taught myself Flutter. Basically, I started teaching myself Flutter, and then I started working in it. And well, this is about 7 years later. So that I think it gives me a unique perspective to sort of teach this as well, because I understand the questions that you might have, the confusion that new students may have. I've walked that entire journey, so hopefully I can be, I can help you guys out today, and also in the future. So, yeah, that's my introduction.
Yeah, actually, that's nice. Thank you. So, if at all anyone probably has some questions to ask, even right now, you can ask. If at all there's anyone out there, actually, for anyone, please feel free to unmute. Please feel free to unmute or write the question in the comment section. I don't know whether I should call it comment section or chat section. Still fine. So, guys, anyone with any question, please? In just a few minutes before we kick off. Anyone? Anyone with any questions right now as we kick off, guys? Okay, since you basically don't have any questions, Mr. Robert, please, you can take over still.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I just want to apologize in advance. My screen sharing works, but every now and then it sort of just breaks out, and then I just have to reconnect. So if my screen stops sharing, I will probably notice it, but if I don't, just let me know and I'll just reshare it. There's some kind of issue with macOS at the moment, where the screen sharing just disconnects every now and then. So I just ask you guys to be patient with me. I've been trying to fix this all week, and I haven't been able to get a response from Mac yet. So now it doesn't matter what kind of computer you have. I understand Windows, Mac, anything. So you guys are here today to sort of understand or to start learning about Flutter and Dart. Doesn't matter what your experience level is. You can be, it's called From Zero to Flutter Hero. So I'm going to assume that no one knows anything. You may know something, but I'm just going to assume that you don't know anything so I'm going to start with what Flutter is and what Dart is. So Flutter it's a tool developed by Google originally to build cross-platform applications. So what that means is it's a tool to build apps and also applications on your desktop, on macOS, on Windows, on Android, on iOS, even on Google's new operating system called Fuchsia. So the philosophy is we build it in one area, and then basically it will work on all the other platforms. So previously, what would happen with a lot of tools that people would build is they would have to build a separate application for Android, a separate application for iOS, a separate application for Windows, and typically that would require separate engineers, separate people. It would be very expensive. It would be hard to manage. So a lot of companies across the world, Facebook, for example, created React Native. Google created Flutter, and so the idea was to be more efficient with app development, and also, so that's basically what Flutter is. So Flutter is a very modern tool to build cross-platform applications. So I've got a few notes here. I just want to share with you guys what I want to get through today with you guys. So I'm just going to share my screen, and again, if I disconnect for any reason, maybe Frank, just let me know. And I will also notice it, most likely, but just in case.
Okay.
So let me share my screen. Okay. All right, so I'm running this on Mac OS, but it doesn't matter if you have Windows or Mac. I've never used Android before with Flutter, but you can. But I assume most of you guys have either Windows or Mac. So what I'd like to get through today is I've just told you kind of what Flutter is. And then I would like to show you how to set it up on your computer, whether you have Windows or Mac. Then I want to take you through the basics of what's called the Dart programming language, which is the language that is used to write. Okay, hold on. See what I mean? It disconnects. So the language that's used to write applications is called DART, Dart. And so you've probably heard of many programming languages out there. You've got JavaScript, we have C, we have Python, and Dart here is another language developed by Google. So then I want to talk about this afterwards. What is a widget and what's the widget tree, because it's one of the most important concepts in Flutter. And then I want to give you an Flutter example. I think this one here would probably take the most time because this is kind of programming, and I will also go through all of this. So does anyone have kind of is anyone clear about what Flutter is, or should I delve more into that? What do you think, Frank?
Actually, sorry about that.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just trying to use two devices, but okay, it's okay. Basically, according to me, I feel like if at all anyone has a question, can please put it in the chat. Should I call it chat option or chat box? If anyone has any question, should just feel free. Please feel free. If at all you're having any question about Flutter right now, please feel free to put it in the chat. Or else, if you're also confident with unmuting, it's also fine, please. Guys, any questions about that?
Yeah, I have a question about. I saw something like DART, and how is it related to Flutter? Just want to know about it.
Sorry, I couldn't quite understand what you were saying. Are you asking about the Dart programming language?
I think that's what he's asking. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. It's okay. It's okay now. That's good.
Okay. So what specifically are you asking about Dart?
I think he's new to that, so he's trying to understand how is that related to Flutter.
Okay. So that's actually a really good question. It's kind of the problem with someone like me with like a lot of experience is that I don't always understand. I try my best, but I sort of sometimes skip certain things because my mind is completely conditioned a different way. So sometimes even when it comes to very important questions, I might skip over those. So if you have a question ever, just ask me anything, okay? So when it comes to this question, what is Dart exactly? Okay, so think about it like this. This here is on my screen. Here's an example of a Flutter app. You can see this is a mobile phone. You can see some visuals. You can see here is some kind of weather app. Here's some kind of game. And so all of this is written in a language, okay? Because we need to talk to the computer. We need to tell the computer, okay, what should it do? You know, how should it react? How should it respond? So basically, what the language itself, it's called Dart, D-A-R-T. So it's the language that we use to communicate with the computer. Now, what is Flutter? Flutter is like a book or a tool. Imagine I'm speaking English to you right now, okay? But say I want to teach you how to, say, build a house, okay? Just knowing English is not good enough. I actually need to know how to build a house. So I need maybe a manual, a book, how to build a house. So when I teach you how to build a house, I come here with this book called How to Build a House, and I also speak English. So Flutter is like this book that says how to build a house. It's like a tool. And then Dart is the language I use to communicate that with you, if that makes sense. So we've got what's called a framework. Sorry, my screen is not sharing. Sorry, there I am. My face is not there. So we have what's called a framework, and Flutter is called a framework. It is think about it, it's an instruction manual, or it's a tool like how to build a house. And it comes with a set of instructions on how to build this house. And then Dart itself is just a language. It's just English, okay? So whatever, and there's multiple languages out there. So I can maybe explain to you how to build a house in German, or I can explain how to build a house in any language. So the language we're going to use is called Dart. And so Flutter is the sort of tool set. It's the framework. So it's kind of like, if that makes sense, is that a good analogy? What do you think, Frank?
Actually, that's it. Well explained.
Yeah, so they come hand in hand. So, for example, if I just know Dart, I could just speak English, but I don't know how to build a house, and I want to teach you how to build a house. Like, English is just not good enough. I need to know something else as well, right? I need to actually know how to build it, and that's what think about. That's what Dart is. Sorry, that's what Flutter is. So when we set up this environment on our computer, we need to install two things. We need to install Dart and Flutter. So we need to install the language, and then we also need to install the framework. And so together with those two, we can build applications. All right. So yeah. So how do we actually install Flutter or set it up on your computer? Okay. So the first thing I would do is I would download what's called an IDE. So it's called a IDE. I'm in read-only mode, so I can't really type here. So I would just type in install, not Instagram, VS Code. So this is called Visual Studio Code. It is a program that's free, built by Microsoft, and you can install it for Windows, Linux, or Mac. And you can just hit the install button there, and you just install it on your system. Very simple. And it looks something like this when you launch it. And you've probably seen, maybe if you're interested in coding, you've seen a lot of screenshots of people programming, and you've probably seen a UI like this. There are other tools you can install. You can install something like Android Studio. So Android Studio is also another IDE. IDE stands for Interactive Development Environment. Think about it as a program, like a notepad that you use to type in. And what it does is, as you can see here, it highlights like certain things for you, puts it in different colors. This is called syntax highlighting, and it just makes things easier to see. Imagine all of this was just one color, and I wanted it kind of gets really, I mean, your brain would just not be able to see the differences very clearly. So it colorizes it. It does a bunch of things. It comes with a bunch of built-in functions and things like that. So the first thing I would do is I would download an IDE. So again, if you I recommend Visual Studio Code. It's the simplest. It's free, and that's what I recommend. Android Studio is great. It comes with a lot of Flutter like extensions and things like that to help you with your Flutter environment. This Android Studio is actually built by Google as well, whereas Visual Studio is built by Microsoft. The only issue I have with Android Studio is there's too much stuff. There's too much clutter. There's too much distraction for me personally. And it also loads a little slower. And I personally don't have the patience for it. But it really doesn't matter what kind of IDE you pick at the end of the day. As a beginner, I would definitely start with Visual Studio Code. So once you've installed Visual Studio Code, it will, as I said, it will look something like this. So nothing fancy. It just looks like, you know, we've got just a few options here, etc. So the next step would be to kind of install Flutter itself. So how do you do that? Again, you can just go to Google. You can just type in install Flutter. You'll see here's a website here. I will give you the guys a link as well. Let's put it in the chat, and so you can copy it as well. So install VS Code. I'll just put it in the link. In the chat, I mean. And then give you the link to install Flutter itself. So, okay, hold on. So let me just take you through basically how we would install Flutter. Now it's already installed in my system, so I'm not going to try to install it again. But I will show you basically how to install it. So what you do is you'd go to this link, this one here, and you'll see there's a few different options here. So depending on what kind of operating system you have, you select one of these. And then here they ask you what kind of app do you want to develop, Android, web, or desktop. It actually doesn't matter which one you choose here. This is kind of just a survey. So you can just choose any one. And then it will give you instructions depending on your operating system on how to install it. So it says here, download and install the Windows version of the following packages. Git for Windows, Android Studio. And then it just gives you a bunch of instructions, but all you really need to worry about is just click on this download and install, and then download this zip folder here. So this will be for Windows. So obviously, if you're on Mac, you want to go back, click on that one, choose any one here, just scroll down, find this these options. And now for Mac, you've got two options here. This will depend on your physical Mac computer you have. If you have a newer Mac computer, you want to use this one called Apple Silicon. If you have an older MacBook, you want to use this one. So you will have to do your research if you have a Mac, which kind of processor you have. So Apple has, they use Intel for their processors, and recently they built their own kind of processors called Silicon. So if you have a new Mac, you want to download this one. So once you've downloaded this Flutter, which I'm busy with right now, it's taking me a while. My internet's a little slow. It's about 2 gigs. Once you've installed Flutter, you want to add it's called, I'll show you in a second. Let me just install it quickly, and I'll show you exactly. But basically what you'd like to do is this is the second instruction. So it's really simple, install it, and then the second one is you need to tell your system where it's located. So give me just 1 second for Flutter to install to download fully, and then I can show you exactly how to do that. Just waiting for the installation to finish here. I think what would be maybe better is, Frank, if I actually just like write in the instructions after the meeting, maybe exactly how to install it. But it is well documented here. It goes through every single step.
I think, that would be also fine. You can jump all those steps. There's no problem.
Yeah. So if anyone, because the internet's a little slow and I'm still waiting for it to download. But the whole idea is to just download the zip folder, put it somewhere on your computer, maybe your C drive, and then you want to tell your system where that folder is located. And the way you do that is Windows has this thing called environment variables. And so you need to go into your system settings, which I can after the call, I'll write instructions for you guys on how to install it. And you just basically tell your computer where this Flutter is located. And once you tell your computer where it's located, you can go to your terminal. So on Windows, it will be Command Prompt or PowerShell, or on macOS, any terminal works. Then you can type in Flutter _version, and it should give you something like this. So the cool thing is Flutter comes with Dart already installed, so you can just install Flutter, and it will automatically install Dart for you, the language as well. So it's going to install both for you. So hopefully, hopefully these instructions would be good enough for you guys to install on your computer, go home, install it yourself. But again, if you have any questions afterwards, you don't know how to install it, you can reach out to me. I'll give you my contact details after the call, or I'll also share some instructions with Frank, and then he can maybe share that with you perhaps. So basically the instructions are quite simple. Download the VS Code, download the zip folder, set up your environment variables on macOS or Windows, and then run this Flutter version to see if it's installed on your system. And the final step is in VS Code. If you go to these, okay, hold on. I'm sharing my tab and not my screen. Let me just share my entire screen quickly. Okay, here we go. On Visual Studio Code. Yeah. Yeah, it's happening all the time. So in Visual Studio Code, you'll see these block icons on the side here. So zoom in a little bit for you to show you guys. They look like little blocks. If you click there, you get a search bar here. In the search bar, you can just type in Flutter. In the search bar, you can just type in Flutter. You'll see the official Flutter logo. You'll see this thing called Dart code. And then when you click on it, you'll see an install button that says install. Now mine's already installed, so my only option is to uninstall it. But for example, here's a new package. It will give you like an install button like that. So what you want to do is you want to look out for this check mark that says Dart code, which is the official package. So you want to install this here. The second one you want to install is just type in Dart, this extension here. Now, these extensions basically give you VS Code support for the Dart and Flutter language. So basically, it gives you things like syntax highlighting. It makes all the text nice colors. It also connects VS Code with your Flutter environment, etc. So, do I have any questions? By the way, I've been talking a lot. Is there any questions you guys may have? I can feel free to just put questions in the chat as well, so I can have a look at them as. Oh, here we go. We've got one question. Yeah, so I was asked about the specific requirements, the hardware requirements, and that some weak computers may not be able to handle certain software and the emulators. Okay, cool. I can definitely talk about this. So I'm just asked this question. I'll put the question up on the screen. So give me 1 second. So here's the question. Guys, I'm really sorry about this screen sharing issue I'm having. So here's the question. We're talking about what kind of hardware requirements is needed for Flutter and Dart. And some weak computers may not be able to handle some software. That's true. Depends on your computer. And then this person wanted me to talk about the emulators. Let me just try to get your name right. I am bad at pronunciation. It's Karyeja. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm really bad with names. So let's have a look. Okay, so let's talk about hardware specifications. Obviously, if you have a computer from like 2013, it's probably going to give you some trouble. But if you have a computer that's maybe 5 years old, that should be fine. So think about when Flutter got first released. This was about 2017. So it ran on computers that worked fine in 2017. It's still going to run fine on computers that was, say, if your computer is from like 2017 or something like that, that's still going to be fine. So that's like 8 years old. If you have a computer that's at least 8 years old, or that's maximum 8 years old, then I think Flutter would run fine on your computer. Just make sure your computer is clean. You don't have a million different applications on the computer running at the same time. That's going to slow things down. If I work in software development, I have a dedicated computer just for software development. If I want to play games, different computer. If I want to watch videos, different computer. I keep one computer just for development. And that way, I don't have a million things running at once that slows down my developer experience, if that makes sense. If you only have, or just use your phone for things like your social media and everything if you can, and then keep your computer for development only if you can. It's not always possible, but if you have that option, definitely do that. It's also good practice for security. Just if you're going to work with clients, for example, if you want to do screen sharing and your Instagram pops up or something like that while you're screen sharing, that's not very professional, right? So as you can see, the tools I've got here, they're all related to development. I've got Slack, I've got some AI, I've got VS Code. I've got nothing extra here. And this helps my computer run fast because I only have the relevant stuff here, and a million things are not running at once. Now, when it comes to emulators, so so an emulator is basically like a virtual phone or a virtual device that's running on your computer. So if we look at the Flutter website, so as you can see, here's like a little picture of a phone with some app in there. Now you can actually, if you don't have a physical device, like a physical device or a phone, say a physical Android or physical iOS device, maybe you only have an Android, but you also want to write your app for iOS. What you can do is you can run an emulator. And so an emulator is like it's a fake device. It's not a real device, but it's running on your computer, and it looks kind of like this. And then you can run your Flutter app in this environment. So it's like pretending that you actually have a phone when you may not have a phone plugged in or something like that. So there is a catch here. If you're running an old computer, say from 8 years ago, and you're trying to run this app on a modern iOS device, and you're trying to run that emulator, it can be quite slow sometimes. I'm not going to lie, if you have a slow computer, it can get very frustrating. But what I typically do is I build my computer for my apps for web first. So I would run my apps in Chrome. Okay, so I would run it in a web environment. And then when I'm ready to actually deploy it to iOS or Android, I would then compile it for iOS and Android. A lot of developers, they run the emulator and they sort of code the app while they run the emulator. And to me, there's no reason to do that unless you have specific hardware, unless you're doing specific things with the iOS or Android hardware. I think a good approach is to just build your app for web first. Just build it for web until you can no longer build it for that environment. Say you need to use some GPS hardware or something, and then switch over to your emulator. And that will give you like just a nicer development experience, in my opinion. Now, that's just my opinion. It would depend on how you feel about it. But I would say go and experiment. It's the best way to learn, is to just try to experiment. All right, thanks. Okay, so do I have any more questions? Let's look at the comments. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, if you guys have any more questions, you can post in the comments, and I'll put it up on this document, and I'll answer it for you. Or you can just ask. Okay, no comments. That's okay. All right, so once you have Flutter set up on your computer, you followed all the instructions. The next step is to start your first application. So I'm sure that a lot of you have heard of a simple Hello World application. That's kind of where you start when you learn a new language every time. You just create a little application that just says Hello World, and that's it. So let's start with a very basic Hello World application. So hopefully you can see my screen. Let me just move my tab out of the way here for me. So how would you do that? So the first thing is I would go to my file explorer. So I'd go to somewhere on my computer, and then I would create a new folder, and I'll call it, give it something like Hello World. Okay. Now, as you can see, look at how I named it. It's all underscore, it's all lowercase, and it's separated by underscores. I would highly recommend not doing something like this, like using spaces and using uppercase and lowercase. Because what often happens on systems like Git, or if you're working with people on other platforms, all this gets forced to lowercase. Some file systems like macOS and Linux is actually case sensitive. So Hello World like this, right, is not equal to Hello World like this. It's not the same. On Windows, doesn't matter. On macOS and Linux, it actually does matter. And spaces is trouble always when it comes to naming files. So, and Flutter actually sometimes won't allow you, and other programming languages as well, won't allow you to use spaces. So to make your life easier, just stick with this convention where you name things all lowercase and separate things with underscores. So the next thing I would do is I would want to open this folder in Visual Studio Code. And so in Windows, you would go, you would say File, Open Folder, and then you'd look at your, you'd find your folder. Where is it? Oh, there we go. You'd find your folder. And so now you open this folder in Visual Studio Code. So now it's just an empty folder, empty project. There are no files in here or anything. Okay. So that's one way to do it. You can also, if you're on macOS, you can take your Hello World and you can just drag it on into the VS Code icon. Sorry, just drag it there, and it will open. So simple. Now I've got a new project. Just somehow they just created a new folder for me there. I can delete that one. So next thing I want to do is I want to create a new file where I'm going to write my code. So you can just right click, you can say new file, and we can call this main.dart. What's going on? So give me 1 second. I'm just going to do this again. My VS Code is complaining for some reason. Don't worry about all this errors I'm getting. It has nothing to do with Flutter or Dart. So I'm going to create a new file. Call this main.dart. Oh, give me 1 second. I just need to clear up some space. I forgot to pay my macOS bill. It's really annoying when you don't have space on your computer on Mac. They tell you can't create a new project or something because you don't have space on your computer, which is just give me a second. I'm just trying to delete some stuff here. It's I'm not the biggest fan of Mac, to be honest. I don't like Windows either. I don't think I like any operating system. Maybe Linux. Okay, so hopefully I've got space to create one single file on my computer now. Okay, let me just share my screen again. Okay, so I've got my project here, Hello World. And so we're going to create a new file. So it allowed me to create an empty file now, which technically should not take any space, but anyway. All right, so how do we start an application? So I'm sure you guys have seen maybe snippets of programming languages or how you start an application. So in Dart specifically, we always start an application with what's called a main function. So what that means, let me show you what it is. So you type in this thing called void. I'll tell you what that is in 1 second. Main, an opening bracket and a closed bracket, and then an opening curly bracket and a closed curly bracket. So this is something you'd see in a lot of programming language like C. You'd see this in maybe tons of languages. You'd see this kind of main function. Now, what is a function? A function is basically, think maybe you know something about mathematics. A function is something that has an input. Then we'll process that input. And then it's got some kind of output. So think about it like this, right? 1 plus x is a function, right? In mathematics, you sometimes get something like fx equals 1 plus x, right? This is a typical mathematical function. What that means is x is a variable. We can give x any number. F stands for function. And then we've got some kind of function body here, some definition of the function. So think about it like this. If f is 1, f1, then we've got 1 plus 1, which is 2, right? So this function takes any number and it adds 1 to it. That's a function. So you can see this function returns a value. It returns a number. And it takes as an input another number. Now think about it. Say we've got another more complicated function. Say we've got f x y, okay, equals say 2x plus y. That's another function. Okay. Maybe we want to have like a exponential function. So we've got x equals say x times x. So this is x squared. So this could be like a parabola, right? So when you put 1 there, for example, if x is 1, then our answer is 1. If x is 2, then our output would be 4. So as you can see clearly, this is a function, but this is the function name. This is it, main. Okay. This is the body, everything that goes in here. So whatever goes in here is here. So like that. So we've got main, but this function doesn't take any inputs. So we can take that x away. It also doesn't return anything. So void means nothing. Void, it's in the void. It doesn't return anything. We can put like something like int there, which is short for integer, a whole number. which means this function returns a number. But our main function in our application does not return anything. And this is always, we always create our main function like this. What is a main function? This is the first function that the system will execute. It's always going to start with this function. So even if you define other functions, like say sum, so we've got a function that adds two things together. So we've got two numbers, x, y, and then we're going to return x plus y. Okay. So this is a simple function, and in mathematics it will look like this. It would look like f xy equals x plus y. So this is the mathematical sort of equivalent. That's how we write it in maths. This is how we write it in programming. So as you can see, they kind of, the logic is the same. You take two numbers, you add them together, and you return the sum of it. And then the return value is an integer. It's a number. It cannot be anything else. I mean, if you add two numbers, what do you get? You get a number. You can't get, say, a character, or you can't get any other type of value. Okay. Does that make sense? What a function is? Okay, cool. So this here, the int, is called a data type. Now, a data type is, think about it, it's the type of information. It's a type of information. So if I say 0, what are you going to think? What kind of data type is that? That's a number, right? What kind of number is 0? 0 is, well, it's a real number. It's a whole number as well. Okay. If I give you a number pi, so I give you this number pi, right? Is that a whole number? No, it's not a whole number. This is a real number. It's a number with decimals. So obviously this is not an integer. An integer is a whole number. Okay. An integer is, so for example, -55. That's also an integer. So integer is any negative like number without decimals, 0, and every positive number without decimals, all the way to infinity. That's an integer. So it's spelled like this. So that's what that means. Now, if I say Robert, okay, I give you that data, my name. Is that a number? No. What is that? You can say it's a name. It's a word. Okay. But in programming, we don't call it a word. We call it a string. So let me share my screen again. So in programming, something like my name, Robert, is basically a string. Okay. Now, a string, think about what is a string. A string is like a piece of rope, right? Like a string, okay, in English. It's just what we decided to call it. It's almost, the reason why we called a string is because we thought of it as a string of data, a string of characters. We've got an R, we got an O, B, E, R, T. It's almost like it forms like a continuous line. It forms a string. That's why this is called a string. Okay, so, and in programming, we can do something like this. We can say string, full name. Okay, we can say string first name. Okay. And so say I'm going to create a function that's going to take two names. It's going to take my first name and my last name, and it's going to return my full name. So what we can do is we can say return first name plus last name. Okay, so now this is kind of confusing because we're taking two names, first name and last name, and we're adding them together. What does that mean? I mean, mathematically, how do you add a string? What does that mean? That's kind of confusing, right? So remember, programming is not mathematics, but there's a lot of things about programming that is similar to mathematics. What this does is it will take two strings and we'll just put them next to each other and to create another string. So if my first name is Robert, so first name equals Robert, like that. And my last name is, well, my last name is very difficult to pronounce, but this is my last name. Okay. What would be my full name if I use this function? So if I call this function full name, that's the function name. I can call anything I like. Okay. And I put as the input. So remember, this F in mathematics is the function name. So instead of, this can be anything. I can call this anything. I can call this random characters if I want to. So this function is called full name. Now I'm going to put in Robert as the first name, and I'm going to put in my surname as the last name. What would this function return? Well, it's going to return a string, because we said it's going to return a string. It doesn't return a number. That'll be odd. Like, imagine if I put in two strings and then somehow I add them and it returns a number. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. So the result of this function would be, say, something like this. That will be the final result, because it's going to take two strings. It's just going to add them together to form a longer string. So you've seen here that we've got two different types of data here. We've got an integer, which is like a number, and now we've got a string. That's another data type. Okay. So in programming, we've got multiple data types. So we got strings. Okay. We've got int. We have double. I'll tell you what that is in a second. We have bool, or also called Boolean. We've got many more, but these are the basic data types. So this is obviously a bunch of characters, like my name. This is a number from -infinity to infinity. However, here's a catch. You cannot actually give your computer an infinite number, because an infinite number takes infinite space in your memory, so in your computer memory. So there is actually a limit to how big numbers you can use in your computer, and that will depend on your computer's architecture. So technically, this is not correct. There is no such thing as infinity number on your computer. Okay, there is only finite numbers on your computer, because we have a limited memory. You know, in your computer it says your memory is, say, 16 gigabytes of memory. Well, that says how 16 gigabytes basically means that you got limited amount of memory. You don't have unlimited memory. If you had unlimited memory, you could have unlimited numbers, but we don't. We work in the real world. We're not mathematicians, we're engineers. Mathematicians live in the cloud. They imagine things that may not exist. Okay? Engineers, we only work with things that are real. Okay? Things that are tangible. Like, we know that the infinite exists conceptually, but it doesn't exist in the real world. Okay? Maybe you can say love is infinite. Maybe that exists in the real world, or God's infinite, or whatever you want. That's infinite, maybe. But when we talk about actual numbers in engineering, unfortunately, we don't have infinite numbers. Anyway, so we've got this thing called a double. Now I can tell you the whole history of why it's called a double, but that's a long story. But a double is just a real number. Double is a real number. What is a real number in mathematics? It's any number that has decimals. Okay. So any number that has decimals. Now here's the catch. So let's make a drawing for you quickly here. You've probably seen this drawing in a math class when you were probably not paying attention. I didn't pay attention in school, but anyway, you got your real numbers here. So imagine this is the every single real number is inside of the circle. Every single thing that exists. Maybe we've got like, 3.2 there, and that's a real number. And then we've got say the number E. We got what's it, 2.71 or whatever. We've got a bunch of numbers in here. Now, inside of this real number space, we have you've probably heard of irrational and rational numbers. You've seen this in math class. We've got irrational numbers, that's here. We have rational numbers. For example, the number pi would be an irrational number. I don't want to go into math for you here, but I'm just trying to explain. You got a bunch of numbers, a bunch of different categories of numbers. So in programming, we don't worry about irrational or rational numbers. So I'm going to take those away, okay? But we do not worry about whole numbers. So we got whole numbers. So think about what this means. It means every whole number is also a real number, okay? So for example, the number 1 does have decimals. Even if, I'll show you, it has decimals. So number 1 has decimals because it has just 0 as decimals. That's a number 1. So every single whole number is also a real number. But every single real number is not necessarily a whole number. So 3.2, right, is a real number, but it's not a whole number. 1 is a whole number and it's a real number, technically. Okay, but we don't call this real, we call this double. And in programming, we call this int. So we've got every single integer is kind of, think about it, it kind of can be converted to a double. But a double might not necessarily be converted to an integer unless you round it up. Okay, so this is just a sort of like a basic understanding of what this means. And the big reason why it's called double is because it takes double the amount of space in the memory, but don't worry about the name. Just remember that double means kind of a decimal number, whereas integer means it's not a decimal number, but it can be converted to a decimal number, in which case it will just have zeros as the decimals. So that's what that is. And then a Boolean is true or false. That's it. A Boolean can only have 2 values. It can be true or false. So if I say, is it Tuesday today? Okay, that's false. It's not 5, it's not, no, it's not Tuesday, it's false. So it's either yes or no. So if you ask someone a question and they don't answer you, and you say, just give me a yes or no answer, you're asking them for a Boolean. You're saying, I'm going to give you some data. What is the day today? Oh, sorry, is the day Tuesday today? That's the data. That's the input of my function. You are the processor. You're going to process that information, and in return, you're going to tell me yes or no. Okay? If you tell me some story about something, you're not giving me the right data type when I ask you a question. Now I'm pretending that you're a computer. You're not really a computer. You're just a human being. But imagine you're a computer. Is it Tuesday today? And you tell me, oh, no, it's not. Well, maybe if we use a different numbers, like if we counted the days differently, then maybe conceptually it could have been Tuesday. That's not what I asked for. I asked, is it Tuesday today? Yes or no, right? True or false? And that's a Boolean. So does this make sense, these 4 data types? Now you can give me an answer in the comments, true or false. Does this make sense, a Boolean? So yeah, I'm glad I'm getting true here, right? Oh, there's one person who typed true like this, capital T. That's actually that's a wrong type. You can't type that. You have to, unfortunately, you have to use it lowercase. That's the correct way in Dart. So I'm just being annoying. I'm just joking with you. But yes, so we've got these 4 data types. So this is just the type of information we're dealing with. Okay, these are what's called primitive data types, very basic data types. Technically, a string is technically a list of characters. So that's why you see string is capitalized and all these are lowercase, because technically strings are not what's called primitive data types, which means a string is not as simple. A string is actually a list of, think about a list of ASCII characters, and every ASCII character or every character can be understood as being a number. So think about it like this. Say we've got a bunch of characters. Sorry about the screen sharing. We'll try to fix that again. So we got a bunch of characters. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, okay? And I give you something like A, B, C, A, B, C, okay? I can say that's a string. But I can also say technically it's a list of numbers, because A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. So basically I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, right? So it's almost like it's one large number, any string I can say, for example, space is 4. So now I'm saying 1, 1, 2, 3, space 1, 1, 3 is then 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, sorry, not like that, like this. ABC space AABC is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3. So you can see that a string is technically just a list of kind of numbers. So that's why it's not really primitive. It's not a simple data type. And in programming languages, especially in Dart, non-simple complex data types start with a capital letter, and then simple data types like this is lowercase. So we also have other type of data, and we'll get to that maybe in the future. We've got things like a list. So maybe we want a list of strings, or a list of numbers, or a list of booleans. We have what's called a map. We have what's called a set. A bunch of different data types, and we'll go into that maybe in the future, because those are slightly more complex. They're still simple, but for a first beginner sort of tutorial on what this is, I would rather leave that for later. Okay. So let's create our first application, our first Hello World application. Okay. I'm just going to save this to a different file because I don't want to delete this. So I'm just going to say, just going to call this example. Okay. So I'm going to delete everything in here. So now let's look at our main function. So to create a simple Hello World, we're going to call this function inside of this main function. It's going to be called print. and then we're going to say hello world. So what does this do? Okay, the program Dart, the Dart sort of, let's call it runtime. The Dart runtime, it's called a runtime. It's just an application that runs code. So the Dart runtime is going to first look at this main function, and then look at this. We're putting a function inside of another function, which is strange. And we're calling this function. We're saying, I'm going to call this function called print. I'm going to give it some data. So I'm going to give it a string. And we're going to say the string is called hello world. And what does the print function do? Well, the print function just prints some text to the console. So if I run this application by clicking on the run there, this will only appear if you have the Dart and Flutter extensions installed. You'll see it's going to print hello world. Very simple. So run, print hello world. That's exactly what I ask it to do. So this is called Dart. It's a language. Now I'm talking to the computer with this language. I'm saying, computer, please print to me hello world to the console. And then when I run this application, the computer follows my instructions, executes them, and does exactly what I ask it to do. I ask it, run it in the console, and it does that. Now, let's ask the computer to add two numbers. So what we can do is, I will create two numbers. And so the way I create them is I type in, I'm going to type in int. I'm going to say number one equals, let's say, 42. Okay. I'm going to create another number, number 2, I'm sorry, number 2 equals 1. Okay, so what is this called in mathematics or in programming? This is called a variable. A variable, think about the word variable. What does that word tell you? Vary. It can change. It can vary. So a variable is something that can change. If I say, the weather is very, the weather here changes a lot. It varies a lot. It means it changes a lot. So a variable is something that changes by definition. That's its definition. But it gets more complicated than that. And I'll tell you about that in a second. So we got two variables here. We can call this, if we want to be like, we can call this X and Y if we want to call it like something that you're more used to in mathematics. But so we can call this X and Y, but here's the thing, X and Y doesn't really tell me much. Let's be more explicit. Let's just call it number 1 and number 2. Okay. So I'm going to say number 1, number 2. And now I'm going to create a new variable, number 3. And I'm going to say number 3 is equal to number 1 plus number 2. Now, if you think about it, what did I just do? I created a function here. This is a function. This is technically a function. You can say, well, it's addition. Yeah, but addition is a function. Any kind of operation in mathematics, whether you're subtracting, whether you're adding something, whether you're dividing something, you are basically defining a function. Okay. So this is a function. It says I've got two numbers, two inputs, adding them together, and then I'm assigning that sum to this number 3. So what would number 3 be? Number 3 would be 43, right? Because I'm saying 1 plus 2 is 3. Very simple. Okay. Now let's do the following. Let's print number 3 in the console here. So instead of that, I'm going to print number 3 in the console. Now, print is a very special function. It can take what's called an object. It can take anything and it will print it, whether you're printing a string or a number or anything. It's going to print anything you give it. It's going to try to, at least. So let's run this, and I get 43. Well, I expect that. I told the computer exactly what I want, and it did what I want. It's saying, take two numbers, print the number in the console. Okay. It's quite simple, I think. Now, imagine I do this. I type in string, number 1. This is confusing. What am I doing here? So you see I get this red squiggly lines underneath my number. It says, what's going on here? You're saying that you want to create a string called number 1, but then you're giving it a number. That's a mistake. You can't, that's a mistake. What are you trying to do here? You're giving me conflicting information. So that's when you would experience what's called a syntax error. Now, syntax error means that the programmer, me, made a mistake, okay, right now. And I can't run this application. If I try, it says, it gives me a bunch of red stuff. It says, well, in this file, main.dart, there's a value of type int can't be assigned to a variable of type string. Here we see that word variable again. It's because you can't say, well, my name is 42. That's not really a name, is it? Or you can't say number 1. Give me a number between 1 and 10, and I tell you, okay, I'll give you a number between 1 and 10. How about coffee? I'm like, that's not a number. So your question is wrong. So your answer is wrong. This is where you will experience a syntax error. It's like, well, your logic. There's something wrong with your logic. So the program won't actually run if we actually give it if there's a syntax error. And I've been programming for a long time. I make syntax errors all the time, and you're going to make them as well. You're going to make a ton of them. And the only trick is to identify what went wrong, what did you do wrong, and just fix it. So there we go. Do I have any questions so far? Frank, do you think there's anything that you'd like me to elaborate on? Or
I think we are good.
Are we being too simple? Are we being too complicated? What do you think? Are we?
The flow is fine. It's just fine.
Okay. Okay.
Because there's someone with a question in the group.
Do you have any questions about maybe data types, maybe functions? Because I know for some of you, you might think, oh, this is too simple. I already know the stuff. But here's the thing. If you have a very in-depth understanding of every single part of programming, and you create a solid foundation, you will stand out from all the other programmers out there. Like, there's a lot of programmers who start with Flutter first. They start with this big thing, Flutter first, but they don't understand the basics of programming yet. Okay, there's a lot of things they don't quite understand, and that actually really stands in your way. So later, I will just show a basic Flutter application for you guys. For now, I just wanted to sort of get you used to Dart, because this is the foundation of everything. And if you don't understand the foundations, you're going to struggle. Don't even forget about building applications if you can't understand the foundations. You have to, unfortunately, understand these things quite. So yeah. So these are just instructions I get the computer, and I say, please execute these instructions for me. Shall we dive deeper into functions, or I would like to understand nested functions? Thank you. Okay. Nested functions. So there's this concept in programming called nested functions. It's like a bird's nest. Nested. Okay, so what is a nested function? Well, I just gave you an example here. Let me show you. So here's an example. There's a nested function. There's a function inside of a function. That's called nesting. Okay. Imagine I do something weird. I'm going to do something weird for you guys. I'm going to create a function, and I'm going to call it sum1. I can call anything I like. Okay, that's the beauty of programming. You can call something like a variable or a function, anything you like that makes sense to you. Okay, so I'm going to call this function called sum1, and I'm going to say it's going to again add two numbers. I've got a number a. I call this a. You can call it x. You can call it whatever you want. A, B. Okay. Two functions. Okay, that's called sum1. I'm going to call another function, create another function called sum2, and another function called sum3. Now, as you can see, there are syntax errors here. Why? Because I'm saying this function returns an integer. It returns a number, but you can see here I'm not returning a number. So that's a problem. I'm telling it, yeah, it's returning a number, but then I'm actually not putting anything in here. So for example, if I return a number, a plus b, right, then it doesn't complain. But if I take this away, it complains because it says, well, you said you're going to return a number, but you're lying to me. You're not returning a number. So that's what it's saying to me. Now let's do something strange. I'm going to define sum3 here as a plus b. Okay. Now this 3 doesn't mean take the sum of 3 letters. This is just a number of the function. So this is where maybe you want to be smarter when you rename things, because sum3 sounds to me like it's summing up 3 numbers. So it's important as a programmer to make sure that you name things that's not going to confuse you. So I can say it sum C, sum B, and sum A. So this is kind of less confusing because now you won't think, oh, it's maybe the sum of 3 numbers. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this something that's a little confusing. I'm going to say sum A equals, or I'm going to return sum B. Hold on. Okay. So here's something interesting I just did. What's going on here? Okay. And I'm going to do here sum C. This is a bit of a little confusing if you're a beginner, but maybe you'll get it. Okay, so what's happening here? Well, if I run this, I'm going to run this quickly for you. So I'm just going to take this out. So these are comments. This means that it's ignored. So if you start any line, you start with 2 slashes, 2 slashes like that. It's going to ignore this. It's going to pretend it doesn't exist. So you can type in anything here, even if you make a syntax error. Like even if you say string, like it's just going to ignore this entire line. It's going to pretend it doesn't exist. And this is great if you want to like put reminders for yourself in here, like what's happening. You want to tell yourself, you want to tell yourself, you want to help make notes. It's like for making notes in your application. So you can kind of make notes like that. So I'm going to just comment all of this out. That's what it's called, commenting out. So that means, basically it means that this doesn't exist. Then I'm going to print sum A. So look at what I'm doing now. Okay. So I'm putting this inside of this function. Can you see? I'm putting this function inside of this function. Now you got to be very careful here. See, this is the opening bracket of the print function. That's the closing bracket of the print function. And you can see this one is pink and that one is pink. But you see the sum A's opening bracket and closing bracket is blue. So this way you can see which bracket belongs to which function. Okay. So what I'm doing here, this whole thing that I'm highlighting is actually a number. That thing is equal to 100. Think about it. A plus B is, let's just put C there, some C. A plus B is, well, some C takes the sum of two numbers, right? So I'm putting in 1 and 99. So this entire thing here, that entire thing, okay, is equal to 100. Think about this as being just a fancy way of saying 100. I can put 100 there, okay? I'm going to put 100 there. I'm going to print this, and you'll see it just says 100. But now I can put that whole thing in here, and I print that. It's also just going to say 100, because the entire thing is equal to 100. Why is it equal to 100? Well, let's look at the definition of some C. Some C says we got two things, A and B. We're adding them together, and then we're returning this as a new number. So this whole thing is just a number. It's just a fancy way of writing 100. The whole thing is 100. That's all it is. So I'm putting 100 inside of this print function. Okay, and this is called nesting, when you put something inside of something inside of something. Okay. Now, to make this even more complicated, I don't want to confuse you guys just yet, but this is a good question. And remember, don't worry if you don't necessarily understand something completely. Like when you get taught something, or when someone teaches you something, you don't always. Give me 1 second. Don't worry if you don't understand everything 100%. I think if you understand things 80%, that's good enough, because in time these things will make sense. Okay. So like the way, when I started learning in the beginning, I thought that I had to understand everything before I move on to the next concept. But that's not true. You don't have to understand everything before you move on to the next thing. You can understand something more or less. You move on to the next thing, and then maybe a week from now, when you lie in bed and you start thinking, or you're just having dinner, or you're taking a shower, all of a sudden something makes sense in your head. You just think, oh, that's cool. Now that makes sense. And that happens all the time. So it's also good if you learn a new language. For example, you learn to speak a new language. I love learning new languages. I would read a book, say Harry Potter or something, any book. I would try to read this book in another language, but I don't understand like all of it. I understand maybe 60% of it. But then as I continue reading, as I expose myself to this more and more, things start making sense. And it's the same with programming. Like, it's a journey, and you just got to keep on, and then eventually things will make sense to you. For me, because I've worked with this for a long time, to me it's very clear. And to you, it will become clear as well as you walk this journey, as you continue on. So look at this confusion right here. Some C, okay, this is quite interesting, but now what if I put some B in there? Okay. Well, what is some B? Some B is defined as being the result of some C. What's the result of some C? Some C is defined as being A plus B. So I'm taking the input of some B, the first input and the second input, I'm putting it inside of the input of C and of C, and then I'm returning the sum of C, or the result of C, and that's the result of B, which is a little confusing. So I'm nesting functions here. I'm putting a function inside of another function, which is funny. So some B is again going to be 100. It wouldn't be anything else. Now, what's some A going to be? Well, some A is also going to be 100, because what some A does is it's calling some B, and then what some B does is it's calling some C, and then at the end of the day, I've got just this. So it's just calling each other. Like, it's playing a game of like telephone, where you kind of whisper to one person, that person tells the other person, that person tells the other person. So we can do something interesting here as well. We can now do something weird where we say, okay, some B is A plus B. Some B Sorry, I could just confuse myself there. Sum C is A plus B. Sum B is the result of sum C. But let's do something weird now. Let's add a 1 here. Okay, so now it's getting a little confusing. So now sum B is the result of sum C plus 1. So if I put in 1 and 99, what am I going to get here? I'm going to get 101, right? Because what's the result of 1 plus 99? It's 100. And I'm adding a 1 here. So let's see. 101 Dalmatians. All right? That's what I'm getting. Now let's do something even more complex. Let's take the result of sum B and we subtract 50 from it. Okay? What am I going to get now for sum A? I'm just going to maybe put in the comments, what do you think is the result going to be of sum A? Let's see who gets it right. Okay. Any more people? What are your guesses? Yep. Yeah, you guessed right. It's 51, right? So without even running the application, we can see, okay, it's going to be 51. There we go, 51. Why is it 51? Well, let's think what does sum C do? Sum C adds 2 numbers. Sum B adds 1. And then we're subtracting 50. So it's almost like I'm saying, well, 1 plus 99 plus 1 minus 50. That's what I'm saying. So if I print this entire statement, so look at what I'm doing there. I'm printing this entire statement in there. Because what is this entire thing? This is also a function. It just looks differently. But this is a whole function that I'm putting in there. And the return type is inferred, meaning the computer assumes, or it already knows what the return type is, which is an integer. Because it can only be an integer. The Dart is smart enough to know, well, what you're trying to do here. So I'm running that, and I see I get print 52 and then 52 again, 2 times 52. So it's the same thing, right? You're all correct. 51, not 52. So this is called nesting, where we put one function inside of another function, and we do this all the time, okay? Because this is just a very simplified version of nesting, but you guys will undoubtedly see a lot of nesting in functions. And as I said, the main function, unless you put all your code in the main function, which is, no one does that. Nobody in their right mind would put the entire application code inside of the main function. It's very confusing. So what we do is we break up the application in different parts, and then we reference those parts inside of other functions. And then together it creates a nested system, and that forms your application. Do I have any questions? If there's anything you'd like to understand, even if it's a dumb question, there's no such thing, by the way, then put it in the comments, because you can ask me the dumbest question, but I promise you I can make that very complicated for you. Like the dumbest question I can make very complicated, because there is no such thing as a dumb question. You can just ask me something about a number, and I can delve into the how it works on your computer, how it processes numbers. I can make any question a living hell. So there is no such thing as a dumb question, okay? Like even the most basic questions, sometimes the most basic questions are actually the smartest questions. So feel free to ask any question.
There is any questions? Oh, we are good to proceed.
Okay, you're good to proceed. Okay, cool. So we create a very basic application here in Flutter. How are we going with time, by the way? I didn't even keep track. Yep, we still have. Okay, so the question is Dart basically C programming, and that's a good question. Okay, so here's the cool thing about that. Dart was inspired by the C syntax. So basically, the web for a long time ran on pretty much JavaScript. JavaScript is another language that's inspired by a bunch of languages that came before it. It is my least favorite language. Of all the languages, JavaScript is my least favorite. And the reason why JavaScript, I don't like it, is because JavaScript is quite lazy, in my opinion. It is a powerful language. Most of web applications run on JavaScript. But people realize there's a lot wrong with JavaScript. It produces a lot of error-prone code. It also does not encourage like really proper logical thinking. There's so many errors in JavaScript applications on the web. It's insane. And what Google tried to do is they tried to create another language that's simple but more verbose, and they call it Dart. Now, Dart is very much inspired by C. So in C, for example, let's create a new C application here. I'm just going to say main.c. This is how C looks. Okay, I'm writing C code now for you. Now, C looks very similar. Okay, look at my Dart code here. We've got a main function. We've got this thing called void. We've got some print functions. Now, C, we don't have this thing called. Actually, we do. Modern C can take void as a return type. Okay. I forgot. I started C a long time ago. I forgot about their new updates, but old C had to return a number, either 1 for success, or 0 for failure, or -1 for failure. So that would tell your application there's an issue. So if I run this, I believe I can run it. Let's see if I can run it. I'm not sure. Yeah, okay, this doesn't. I don't think I've got C installed, but oh no, it ran. No, it ran. Okay. So if I run the, so this is C code. If I want to print something, okay, I don't have everything installed, so I might not be able to show you guys. But as you can see, it's very similar. I can create a C function here. I can say sum, and I can create 2 variables, int A, int B, and I can return A plus B. See, so it looks very similar to Dart. It's inspired by the C language. So if you come from a C world, this is really easy to pick up. Dart's really easy to pick up because it follows a very similar syntax. Okay, whereas JavaScript, for example, doesn't even have like data types like that. JavaScript, like you do something like this, something like this with JavaScript would look something like this. And so it's kind of annoying because in JavaScript, you don't always know what this function is returning. What kind of type is it returning? It doesn't really tell you. And it gets really confusing after a while. So JavaScript, for example, they claim, the claim is that JavaScript is simple. You know, you don't have to worry about data types. You don't have to worry about all these things. But with every single abstraction comes a loss in precision. It opens the world up for a lot of bugs and things like that. And so the engineers at Google decided, we want to create web applications and cross-platform applications, but we don't want to use JavaScript because JavaScript is inherently error-prone. So we're going to create a new language called Dart, and then we're going to handle the rest. And so that's what makes Dart stand out from something like React or other platforms. Is one of the pros of Dart, of Flutter, is that it doesn't use JavaScript. So I've got a question. How different is Dart from Java and JavaScript? Okay, so I think I just answered that question. Now Java, for example, looks very different. And Java is, okay, this is a very bold claim that I'm making, and it might not be 100% true, but it's a feeling I have. I think Java is dying, and JavaScript is still going to be alive for a long time, but JavaScript is not going to last forever. I think maybe you're going to see in like 5 to 10 years, JavaScript is going to go down quite. It's not yet. I think next 5 years is still okay, but for the next 5 to 10 years, JavaScript is going to. I mean, people are starting to not really like. A lot of modern applications are not built in JavaScript anymore. Think about GDGoC. Think about these AI applications. These things are built in other languages, something like Flutter or Rust, or many other languages. And the reason why JavaScript started dying, it's going to start. It hasn't started yet. So if anyone says JavaScript is dying, that's not technically true. Okay, it's not dying yet. Not anytime. Not for the next 5 years at least. Because there's so many applications that's running on JavaScript. That means there's a lot of jobs, JavaScript jobs available. A lot of jobs. Most of the web runs on JavaScript, so it's not going to die. But it is going to decline because we've got better technologies now. Okay, we've got things like WebAssembly. Maybe you've heard of WebAssembly before, but it is it's part of the Web3 sort of system where we can now take any language, C, Rust, Python, Dart, anything. We can convert it to WebAssembly and then run it on the web. So any language can now run the web, whereas previously, pretty much only JavaScript ran in the browsers. Like your browser wouldn't support other languages. So everything you had to build, you had to build basically to run. It had to be JavaScript. So they had a monopoly. It forced everyone to stick with JavaScript, and JavaScript was just inherently just a terrible language when it comes to syntax. And what happened was everyone kind of was forced to learn JavaScript, and so. But now it's not the case anymore. You would see a lot of like high performance applications that run on the web now. Think about Adobe Photoshop. Runs on the web. Do you think Adobe Photoshop is made on JavaScript? No, it's not. Maybe some parts of it, but JavaScript is just not fast enough to run something like Adobe. JavaScript is quite a slow language. Think about like Fusion 360 or some 3D software, modeling software that runs on the web. Those things, JavaScript is really just not fast enough to run like serious applications. Those things are built with like low-level programming language and then converted to WebAssembly. And I think that's the future. At least I really hope so, because I personally have a grudge against JavaScript. But that's just my opinion, right? So you talk to another developer, and they're going to have another opinion. And you should just make up your own opinions about things. It's just my personal experience. Talk about the habit of Google abandoning its projects. We're scared if all it happens in the near future. Okay, that's really great. But here's the thing. So Google starts a project, and then they often kind of abandon it. But they don't really abandon it. What they do is they start something in order to, and they market it heavily. Think about Flutter. So what do they do with Flutter? They started Flutter. Are they still maintaining Flutter? Not really. It's now an open source community project. So Google would start something, and then they'll realize, okay, well, we no longer need to invest in this project because there's a lot of momentum. People are doing it for us. The community is actually updating it, maintaining it for us. Why do we need to spend money to invest in it now, when we have basically millions of free engineers that we don't have to pay for, that's continuously updating Flutter? Like myself, I've published like over 50 Flutter packages, by the way. I don't work for Google, but I'm pretty much to work for them, if you think about it. So there's a lot of engineers, people actually work with Flutter every day that think, okay, we need a package for this problem. We need something to solve this problem. Does it exist? No, it doesn't exist. Let's build it myself. And then let's share it with the community. So yes, Google creates a lot of projects and they kind of abandon it, but that's by design. They never plan to keep it on. They plan to only get it to a point where it's like a system that powers itself. And then they move on to the next project. And so that should not be a concern, because it shouldn't be a concern. So think about Microsoft. All the companies do the same thing. Microsoft started what's called C#. So Microsoft started C#. They created C#. They don't do anything with C# anymore. C# is now maintained by the community. Microsoft started like things like DirectX. Mozilla started the programming language Rust, and now it's out of the hands of Mozilla because it's an open source project. So this is very often the case. A big company with lots of resources will create something, and then they'll say, okay, now you have it. Now we've got some free labor, the entire world is involved, and that way it picks up, and that's how it works. JavaScript was the same thing. JavaScript was built by a company with lots of resources, and it was led by, I forgot what the developer's name is, and then the internet just naturally it went viral. Think about it like a social media post. You create a post and it just goes viral. It's out of your control. All of a sudden you create a meme that just spreads like a virus. If that makes sense. So it's all part of the plan. So if you have any concern that it's dying, it's not dying. Why is it not dying? Well, because I and millions of other developers are using it for like our projects. We're keeping it alive, and it's just growing. So let's see, where was I? Functions. Okay, I just want to see how much time we have got left to sort of plan the rest of it. So we still have about an hour. Is that right, Frank?
Yes. Yeah, I understand. But yeah, it was supposed to end by 10, but we can still proceed, no problem.
I've got no. I didn't. I had so much fun. I didn't really keep track of time.
It's okay. It's okay. No problem.
Okay, just let me know. Because the other thing is as well, I don't want to give too much information because your brain can only keep track of, maybe an hour or two, and then
it's okay,
it sort of just goes down. I'd rather break it up if maybe it will be easier for people. But I think what we've covered today is kind of what Flutter is. Just a really basic function, main function. I know it may be basic for some, but hopefully, this made a little bit of sense, nested functions a little bit. And the thing is, you're going to have to train your brain to think like a computer. And this takes patience. It takes time. So when I see this, it's like speaking English. Everything immediately makes sense. I don't even need to explain with comments what it does. Like, I can just see it. Oh, okay, that's easy. I can just like look at it for like 1 second, look away, and I can tell you what the program does, right? And this is not because I'm smart in any way. It's because when you keep on doing something, it becomes easier every time. And so you have to understand that as a programmer is struggling and sometimes not understanding something. It's part of the process. I mean, I struggled my way to success, basically. I struggled my way all the time. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I was confused. Happens to everyone. And so it's all about persistence. Those who persist, they'll get rewarded. So that's what I have to say about that. Some people, they give up too soon, because they get overwhelmed. It's too complicated. So they just say, I can't do it. And there's this famous quote by, I don't know who said it, but the person who says they can and the person who says they can't, they're both usually right. So if you have that attitude, like I can't do it, it's too much, you're right, you can't do it because you already decide in your mind it's too much, so you can't do it. But if you're going to say you can do it, you're right as well. So you can do it. Okay, so what's the plan? Here's another question. What's the plan for some people who have the basic knowledge just seeking to grab advanced concepts? That's a good question. So
yeah, actually, I wanted to share some form. I think it's now already there.
okay,
Yeah, so whoever is in the call right now and you would really want us to proceed with sessions like this with Mr.
Yep.
Robert, talking
Okay.
more.
Yep.
Talking more about that such that we can really advance more, because that's the plan. This was just an introductory session.
Yeah, this was just an intro, guys. Yeah, and also to get a feeling for what you guys need. And so, for example, I got a really good question here. 2 questions. I said, the one was, what's the plan for someone who have the basic knowledge, just seeking to grab advanced concepts? And then I had a follow-up question here that says, are we going to cover all Dart basics like future, mixins, async, sync, and other related topics? Yes. So I think to answer the first question, what's the plan, is we can do a few things, Frank, but it's up to you because you're the organizer. We can have a mix of, we can split this sort of talk into 2 parts. The first part would be basics, and then the second part would make a big leap for someone else, which would cover more advanced concepts. So the second part you may skip, or you just have to understand that you may be confused because it's not made for beginners, and that way we can sort of help beginners and people with who already understand the fundamentals in the same class. Or we can do one day where we do the one and then the other one or something like that. So I think that's Frank, that's maybe for you to decide because you're the organizer, and maybe yeah.
Actually, that's a good point there. So with that Google Sheet there, I know I have the rest of the people's tickets, as I said, the rest of the guys' information, but it's just that some of them may not be that much, interested and such. So, but with the guys who have maintained it up to this time in the call, they're the guys who really want to learn more, because they're of different levels. Some are maybe advanced and all that. So with that form there, at least we can assess, get to know more of your details, and then forward emails to you for more sessions directly to you, because we cannot basically, based on the whole group of people, that like the whole community, let's learn this, know that there is a specific number of people who are interested in this Flutter, because there are different people who are interested in other stuff. So according to me, the guys that we are having in the call here, they just have to fill in that Google form there. So we shall be meeting. I will send out emails. So okay, we shall just basically have an arrangement with you. Get specific dates. Based on what they will feed in here, like in the form, there is, are you a complete beginner? Do you have some experience? Or probably, are you experienced?
Mm-hmm.
So with that, we're able to know, where to categorize people as we learn.
Yeah. But yeah, I've got a full knowledge of, I would say I've got a very, very in-depth knowledge of Flutter. I mean, I know everything from futures to async to streams to specific paradigms, like specific design principles in Flutter and Dart, and just programming in general, because I don't just do Dart and Flutter. I'm also a Rust programmer. I'm a C programmer. I've built video games before. I know everything about 3D software as well. Of 3D programming, I mean, DirectX and OpenGL and WebGL and WebGPU. So my skill set ranges quite a lot, and I think it gives me quite a wholesome sort of understanding. So we can definitely delve into the very advanced topics for those of you who are interested. But as Frank said, like, we don't really, before we actually get some information from you from these forums, it's hard to assess, you know, who knows what. And so the kind of common denominator here is to just start at the very basics. Just assume you guys know nothing. It's just the easiest way for us. But once we get a better understanding where you guys lie, we can sort of tweak this, you know, to your advantage. Sort of, you know, it's a democracy. Unfortunately, you know, you don't always get 100% what you want, but hopefully everyone gets something good out of it. They can then walk away and think, oh, I learned something today. So we can mix it up. We can do one part basic, one part advanced, or oh yes, AR is very interesting. So we can tap. So here's the thing. So there are very advanced topics. AR, VR. We can talk about blockchain. We can talk about AI. We can talk about machine learning. Those things I'm very excited about. I love working with those things. Those are cutting edge things. They're at the forefront. But just remember, this if you don't understand the very basics, forget about understanding these advanced concepts. Still, I mean, we can still play with them. We can still have fun with them. But it is important that you have a really good understanding of the fundamentals of programming before you even think about like tackling something like AR. But some of you already have that fundamental. You already know those fundamentals. So for some of you, you know, if we talk about something like, you know, augmented reality, things will make sense. But again, we need to get a better understanding of where you guys are at in your experience levels and what you guys are interested in before we can sort of talk about other topics. So I don't know. What do you think, Frank? Does that make sense, or is there something that you want to add or change?
No, actually, that's fine. It's just that then basing on your schedule, because as you told me, you're quite a busy person. So yeah, with these people here, for those who would have filled in the form there, they're the ones that I would basically make follow up with via emails, send out emails to them. What's your view about this and that, such that we can go on furthermore. At least if someone out of the sessions that, or the sessions that would have, at the end of the day, I hear that someone is a Flutter dev who got insights from the sessions that we have. That's actually an achievement. You get that, other than maybe having one day session and then runs away.
Yeah.
Then eventually says, I know some Flutter. And eventually, I know some Flutter is basically I know nothing.
Yeah. So I've worked with, like, I would meet developers on LinkedIn or something, and they say they're senior developers or like mid-level developers or junior developers, but then I would sort of work with them, and they're building Flutter applications, okay? But then they've got some error in their code, and then they say to me, I don't know how to fix this. What's going on here? I mean, some of the errors would be the most basic things that I've ever. I mean, these are things that you should have known as a very beginner, right? And then I think to myself, how do you call yourself a mid-level senior developer if you don't even understand, like, you can't add and this together? I mean, they're not even the same data type. Forget about the syntax. I mean, it's fine if you don't understand the syntax, because, you know, if you learn 5 languages, you're going to forget, like, what is it, an int, or is it called an integer, or do I put a question mark there? That's fine. That's all fine. You don't need to understand the syntax. It's something you can learn in a week, really. It's easy. But the programming fundamentals, the basics about architectures, things like that, those are very, very important topics that you need to have a good understanding for if you want to start building front-end and back-end applications. And so very often when I work with programmers, the thing they struggle with the most is not their knowledge of the language necessarily, not the syntax. It's just organizational skills. Like, how do you organize and how do you organize this project in a way that's maintainable, in a way that's easy to communicate with other developers in a way that you keep track of. It's like keeping a clean house. Those skills are something you have to be very, very, you gotta really understand. So what I'm trying to say is a lot of skills when it comes to programming are actually not even related necessarily to programming. It's just about structure and mindset and creating an organized structure. If you can go get those things, if you can do those things properly, then that's the difference between a successful project and an unsuccessful project. It's not necessarily all the knowledge. There's so much more to programming than people realize. And so you can be smart, a genius, but you're disorganized. You'll never finish a project, ever. Because you don't know how to like structure it in a way that's maintainable. That's not going to confuse you. That's not going to overwhelm you. That's not going to cause you to burn out. And in a way that allows you to work with other developers. Because I mean, I can write code and they give it to someone else, and they'd be like, "Whoa, what is this stuff? What are you doing here?" I mean, it makes no sense. It's messy. It's all over the place. Like I can't work with that. That's often what happens. So a good developer is someone who has more than just the technical skills. They have the skills. They have organizational skills. They understand they're working with people, so they need to make the code clear. But they don't. But not make it so clear, overly verbose, that you've got so many comments that are just unnecessary, standing in your way. There's a balance that you have to strike, and it's a very fine balance. And hopefully we can teach you guys that as well on these classes, like just how to be a successful programmer. Yeah. Okay. Do you have any recommendations of books I can read for that knowledge? Okay, so that's a question. I've got another question here. I need some deep knowledge of Dart programming. I need some deep knowledge of Dart programming and state management in Flutter. That's a really good one. State management is exactly what I said, like kind of what I tried to say earlier. You have to understand how to structure your project. State management is basically that. How are you going to manage all the information across your entire application? You can know everything about Dart and Flutter, but how are you going to actually manage that information? And so this is an excellent question and an excellent thing to be conscious about. How are you going to manage that? And this is something we can also talk about in the future. State management, very important topic. Thanks for this impactful session. Thank you so much for calling impactful. I don't do this a lot, so this means a lot to me when I get these good comments. So then I have recommendations on books that you can read for knowledge. I'll have to think about that. So the way I learned, I didn't learn from books. I learned from reading the official documentation, which was very confusing, by the way. I didn't understand half of it. But it's okay. I would just read and read and read and continue reading. I don't get it all. I just continue reading. And then I would start code and I would try to make mistakes, make as many mistakes as you want to, because the more mistakes you make now, the less you make in the future. So make all the mistakes you can make so that you run out of mistakes to make. So I will think about that, and maybe I'll put together a document with some information, and I'll send it to Frank, and then he can maybe forward it to you guys. But there are some good resources out there. I'll just have to look for them. And I also plan to write a comprehensive tutorial in the future I may share with you guys. But one good area to start, if you want to learn Flutter and Dart, is a website called Tutorials Point. So I'll show you on my screen quickly. It's going to help you get started. I don't know how great it is, but when I learned C, for example, a long time ago, I used this website. So it's called Tutorials Point. Tutorials Point. So that's how it's spelled. And so type in Dart. Okay. So this is it. Tutorials point Dart, and so you start with syntax, data types. Kind of, we start with data types, variables, and then it talks about variables here. It talks about loops, decision making, numbers. So this is kind of nice. You can go through to this tutorial here and just like work your way. Start from the beginning, move on to the next, move on to the next, and then till the end. Now, even if you know everything about this, there's still so much more to learn. But this is this may be a good. I'll put the link in the chat for you guys. Yeah, so I got another comment here. I need that organizing, structure, knowledge, architecture, etc. So yeah, I think that would be once we start with Flutter, that's when that will become relevant. So when we start with Flutter, I will talk about how to organize your project in a way that's going to make it easy for you to maintain, make it easy for you to scale up, etc. Any more questions?